Hello, everybody. Hope you're well. Here is the WoW Wealth of Wisdom update for the week. So, what has been happening in cryptocurrency in general, and of course in Bitcoin being the market leader within that? Well, I think overall you couldn't ask for a more positive undercurrent for any asset, as the likes of Bitcoin has had this week, and obviously Bitcoin being the leader, and most other cryptocurrencies tend to follow its direction in general terms. So what's been happening for Bitcoin in the last while? Well, I suppose the first thing is we've just had announced yesterday that the Fed is not going to either increase or decrease the rates. It seems to be priced in now very much so. There seems to be like 100% belief that there's going to be a rate cut of 0.25 in September. Of course, as rates come down, that's good for risk on assets. Bitcoin and crypto are risk on. And so many believe that this will be a catalyst for moving the cryptocurrency world forward pretty eminently. Of course, we've had the Bitcoin conference just in the last number of days. Lots of exciting talk on there, and we've had the likes of Donald Trump, probably the favorite now for to become the next U.S. president, speaking and what he thinks about it. We had Mike Nolgress, for example, from Galaxy Investment Partners, and they're very much focused in the crypto space. They believe that there now will be a Bitcoin strategic reserve, and if that's put in place, they see Bitcoin being worth somewhere between $500,000 and $700,000. That's a sort of 7 to 10x from here, which would be huge growth. Of course, we have the likes of Trump himself, of course, came out and said that, Bitcoin to the moon. He's very aware, of course, that there's 50 million people in the US who are crypto users, crypto holders, and very much trying to appeal to that audience, are all the presidential candidates. But Trump has said, the 210,000 Bitcoin that they currently hold, worth about 15 billion, that will be held and not sold. He believes Bitcoin as a market cap is going to be higher than gold over time. That's about an 11x from here. He wants to support Bitcoin mining in the US. He believes that Bitcoin is a real asset now, and potential to be a reserve asset, and for that reason, he wants then for the US to be the center point of that in the world. Then one of his cohorts in the Republican Party has stated that they believe that they should set up a Bitcoin reserve back in the US dollar, as well as the other assets such as gold and silver, etc., treasuries and so on, and that they should buy up to 1 million worth of Bitcoin and hold it for a minimum of 20 years. So, these are great fundamentals to have backing any asset. And when you have, all candidates now talking positively about Bitcoin and crypto in general, can only be a good thing in the longer term frame for the likes of cryptocurrency. Just to add to that, you have the other presidential candidate, Robert F. Kennedy. He proposed the US should create a reserve and buy up 4 million Bitcoin, which is, about 20% of all supply. I think that would be even difficult to do, but talk about buying up 550 Bitcoin every day until they were to hit that number. Of course, this all has a knock-on effect because the rest of the world are watching, and even already Hong Kong have proposed a strategic reserve for Bitcoin. You can imagine as the rest of the world looks on, every government is going to be looking at this now and seeing should they be trying to front run what the US are talking about doing and creating their own financial reserves with Bitcoin. This is an incredibly positive, and you'd expect usually upside potential for Bitcoin over the longer period. It's not for today or tomorrow, but over the coming months and years, you would surely expect that this has to have a hugely positive effect on the price of Bitcoin and eventually the rest of crypto as we go. And even Kamala Harris, who, has been vice president to the Biden administration, they have been extremely negative towards cryptocurrency. They literally have gone and, supported Gary Gensler and the SEC and literally hunting down anybody and every company company that has anything to do with crypto. They've been incredibly negative. Now, in an open letter by the Democratic Party, they have stated that they want to see a vice president that would be, crypto positive, and believe that they need to be seen to be crypto positive themselves, which is a big U-turn for them. But now you have all three US presidential candidates talking extremely positive about crypto, and that can only be a good thing. And of course, we have the biggest Bitcoin bull of all in Michael Saylor. Michael Saylor was giving his views, backing it up with numbers as to where he thinks Bitcoin could be. And he's given a bear case, a sort of base case, and a bull case as to where he thinks the value of Bitcoin will be by 2045, so in 21 years from now. And it might surprise a lot of people to know his bear case is $3 million Bitcoin. His mid case is $13 million Bitcoin, and his bull case is $49 million Bitcoin. But he backs all that up with numbers. And of course, a lot of people will most certainly probably snigger or laugh at these numbers. I remember back in the day when it was being suggested that Bitcoin could hit $5,000, and the people saying that were being openly laughed at in interviews on TV, in financial channels. When it hit 5, they changed the 20. Again, the laughing started. But of course, we've hit that number now and gone so far beyond. So will these numbers be hit? Who knows for sure, of course. But it's, again, an extremely fundamentally positive view of Bitcoin, and the financial world have woken up to it. The US presidential election coming up in November is, a lot of talk is around the crypto space within that election. And, you have some of the biggest names in the crypto world, and in business in general now, stating that they should have these assets on their books. So usually positive base case for that. On top of all of that, Bitcoin for longer. People are now holding their Bitcoin for longer. The long term wallets, in other words, wallets that hold Bitcoin for 155 days or longer, is ever increasing. And now 68% of all Bitcoin that's been held is being held for 155 days or longer. So again, another, usually positive case for Bitcoin, because obviously the more of it that's held for long term, the less of that's available for sale. And at the same time, if we can see these, huge potential buy orders coming in from governments and companies and so on, well, then you would expect that the value of that asset would have to go up very significantly. So it looks like the bull case for Bitcoin in the long term, and even in the mid-term, looks really, really positive. But what's happening in the short term? Well, let's have a quick look at the chart. So if you look here in the chart and we go back and if I change this to 1 hour, certainly looks like a pretty negative chart for Bitcoin over the hour. If you change and that's each candle is 1 hour time frame of trading. If I change that up here to 4 hours, it'll condense it a little bit, and the picture is different. It looks quite positive over that time frame. But then if you just go back up one more step and go to the day, you can see again, each candle here now represents 1 day. We are still trading within that zone. That zone now is 5 months old. It's been going on since the very end of February. So let's say the start of March. We're in the start of August now, and it's been 5 months of sideways. Generally trading more or less between the sort of 58 to 60,000 up to the sort of 70, 72,000. The longer it stays in that zone, the bigger the move is likely to be whenever that move happens. What's going to create that move? Bitcoin has tried to make this move on numerous times. Every time it doesn't appear to have the energy to really go and go into a full-on bull market. And the longer that happens, the bigger the move that comes. But which direction is the move going to happen? So, of course, if we have what's called a black swan event, or by definition, an event that no one can predict and has a very big effect on the markets themselves, well, is that going to be a black swan event where we have a very significant pullback, or do we have a positive black swan event where it's really big and substantial news that creates that energy in Bitcoin, and it really goes for a run into the $80,000-$90,000 plus mark, which is likely to happen first? Who knows? But so while we have all this very positive news for Bitcoin, and in turn, a rising when Bitcoin rises in general terms, a lot of other cryptos rise with it. But what's holding it back? Why aren't we kicking on? Well, I believe a lot of that is probably down to the overall macro economics. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world. Of course, there's already one war going on at the moment. The US and the EU are meeting again to try and see how they can prevent another war kicking off with the likes of what's happening between Israel and Iran. There's also a lot of other tensions, particularly around the UAE and general Middle East area. And so, with that uncertainty, we see people can often move into risk-off assets, the likes of gold and silver. And of course, we've seen both of those have hit all-time highs recently, which would suggest there's plenty of people around the world that have a lot of concerns about the overall economies and the uncertainty with regards to wars, etc. So it's certainly not all plain sailing, and there's plenty of things within the various economies around the world that would suggest all is not healthy just yet. If you look at the biggest economies in the world, China, Japan, Europe, US, and so on, none of them are looking particularly healthy, and certainly none of them would make you feel particularly bullish about the overall economies at the moment. Of course, the US has just hit another record, hitting 35 trillion in debt. I mean, that equates to something in the region of over $500,000 per working person in the US, which is really incredible. And there's no signs of it not only stopping, it is actually growing at an ever increasing rate. Now more than $1 trillion every 100 days, which is just, really incredible. At the same time, house prices now are starting to be under pressure in many areas of the US. House prices are falling quite dramatically as people are becoming very motivated house sellers before they potentially might feel that the prices are going to come back a hell of a lot more, as can often happen. At the same time, commercial real estate is under huge pressure. And of course, as a sort of a knock-on effect of all of that, you have banks who are the holders of these commercial properties, mortgages, and so on, as the securities on their balance sheets. On top of that, they're the biggest holders of treasuries. Treasuries all around the world are starting to be sold off. The biggest buyers of treasuries around the world, again, China, Japan, and others, are now net sellers and significant sellers of treasuries. So if more and more economies around the world are starting to sell off their treasuries, who are going to be the new buyers of these treasuries? Quite often what happens is, if there's not international demand on treasuries, and the government needs to sell treasuries in order to pay the bills, particularly when they're when their debts are increasing quicker and quicker, they need someone to buy those. And generally what tends to happen then is, internally, they push the banks within the US to buy up these very same treasuries. If the banks themselves are already under pressure, this can have massive knock-on effects for the US economy in general. But if we just have a look at liquidity in general, because this is going to be a real key factor, weekly global liquidity is on the up, and so that would be something that would help greatly. And there's, again, and this is from the Milk Road newsletter, which is, I would encourage everyone to read. It's free. It's, the liquidity is increased by 1.11 trillion. And of course, the more liquidity in the marketplace, the better for banks, the better for governments, and the better for risk on assets in general. So on a weekly view, it looks very positive. And you can see, whenever it grows, it tends to be good for risk on assets. And if you even look at Bitcoin here, Bitcoin being the black line and global liquidity being the orange line, you can see whenever the liquidity is on the rise, so too does the likes of Bitcoin, and again, other risk on assets. So the big question here is liquidity going to continue to grow? Or could there be a pullback within the global liquidity prices? And of course, no one knows the answer to that for sure. And so here we are. We're in a position where the fundamentals for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general are probably stronger than they are ever been, but yet we don't see Bitcoin taking off the back of all this information. If the likes of a US president or potential president was talking so positively, and now all potential presidents are talking so positively about crypto, a couple of years ago, Bitcoin would have gone through the roof really quickly. It's not doing that right now. Why is it not doing that right now? And what's the next potential move. So for me personally, I think there's still the potential for a very strong pullback. I think Bitcoin at least has to hit 52 or less. And there is even the possibility of it going to 43. That's an outside possibility, not a probability. But it's certainly there as a possibility. And I think 52, personally, I think it has to hit 52 at the very minimum before it can take off and actually go into that bull run. What's going to cause it to pull back and what's going to cause it to take off? I think in both cases, it needs to be something pretty significant news. And of course, if it's a black swan type of event, that's not something we're going to be able to predict. But if global liquidity was to pull back significantly, then that would certainly have a very strong knock-on effect on economies, and many would then move to risk-off assets. Has Bitcoin become seen as a risk-off asset yet? I don't believe so. I think it will be in the future. And so I think it certainly would have a detrimental effect on the overall crypto prices, but only, in my opinion, clearing the way for what will be probably the biggest bull run to follow. So what does that mean for people that are following cryptocurrency and deciding what they want to try and do with their own portfolios? Well, first of all, I would certainly say proceed with caution, and when you are getting involved in anything DCA, dollar cost average in, of course, anything I'm telling you is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, and these are just thoughts I'm having, and something that we use within WOW ourselves to try and ensure that we're making the right moves within the overall portfolio of the company as individuals, and of course, letting our community know what we're doing. So where to from here? If you're looking to invest, what should you invest in if you want to have some allocations within the crypto space? Well, on the long term, Bitcoin certainly looks like a good option. That doesn't mean it can't come back in price in between, but in the longer term, if you're looking 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, then it's highly likely, you would imagine, that the value of Bitcoin will be greater than it is right now. How much greater? Who knows? But what we specialize in within WOW is finding, either low cap crypto projects that we believe can outperform the likes of Bitcoin. Of course, they come with much higher risk. And then we go even further out the risk curve, where we look for projects that haven't got into the market at all yet, and we invested them in private rounds and so on. This is something we've been very successful in doing, and aim to continue doing so. And so while Bitcoin for sure is the leader and looks like on the longer term frame it's going to do very well, we certainly continue to look at low cap projects and early stage crypto projects to find what we believe is greater upside, and try and mitigate that risk both through doing the proper research, finding the right projects, dollar cost averaging in to various projects that are also as low caps, and having a good diverse portfolio. So what's happening from here within WOW? Well, within WOW itself, of course, one thing that we're always keeping a very close eye on is generally the regulation around cryptocurrency. You've got the micro regulations in Europe. You've got various other licensing, the likes of UAE, and of course, and you've got the likes of the SEC and so on, tracking what's happening in the US. Gradually, very slowly, we're starting to get the regulations that need to be followed in the US, and of course we all keep a very close eye on that. Regulation within any company is and in any business is something that you have to keep on top of on a sort of weekly, monthly basis, and certainly within crypto it's probably on a daily basis. And so we continue to work to make sure that everything we do within WOW either stays within regulation or follows regulation or gets to that being properly regulated, licensed, and so on. And that's an ever-moving target and something we strive to stay ahead of. With regards to that, we've also, WOW itself has actually made a couple of pretty significant investments in recent times. We'll go into the details of all our investments at a later date. But yeah, some really, really positive news to come out in that end. And of course, the overall vision of what WOW is ever expanding, and we always will look to see is there other areas that we believe can create profit for the Wealth protocol, which of course will benefit everybody that's staking and holding the WOW tokens. But our vision is most certainly getting bigger and bigger. And we've looked at, and I've mentioned it before, we've looked at projects, for example, crypto wallets, which we certainly would like to have something very much associated with ourselves, or at least have a direct input to the likes of that. Same when it comes to exchanges. We have looked at two projects like this, and they're two, we believe, really, really good projects. But we also believe if we were to invest in them, we would need to have somebody actually added into their team, and that's not where we are right now, though it's something we would strive to look at into the future. And for that reason, we're not making a move on either of those projects just right yet, though we have spent a huge amount of time you know, going through all the details with the team, with the founders, with their white paper, and so on. We believe very strongly in the two projects, but it's just not right at the moment for the reasons stated. But that is certainly something we're going to start looking into doing in the future, where we actually would add somebody into their team to have oversight, see that the funds that would be raised and would be put into those projects would be used, in the most efficient way. Um, yeah, of course, internally, we have a huge marketing campaign put together now. An awful lot of work has been done on that, but we're not quite ready to pull the trigger on that just yet. Internally, we're certainly, looking to market what we're doing, let more people know what our NFTs are all about, and of course the token too, and of course we continue to look at other projects that we can bring to you. So just as recently as yesterday and one the day before, I was on two really, really good calls. One is in the gaming sector. It's a really, really interesting project, but at the early stages of looking into it at the moment. But the first view was certainly very positive, and we'll continue to do the research there. The other one was around decentralized databases and etc. Again, very interesting project. We just have to look into both of them in a lot more detail before we make the decision to potentially bring it, be an investment for WoW and be something we can show to the WoW community. And then, of course, there is all the ones that we've already invested in. And again, the plan would be to do an update on a couple of projects every now and again. And we certainly intend to do that. One project, of course, that I believe in very strongly is Voice Life. Voice Life is a project that, as the months go by, just looks stronger and stronger. And it's something, of course, that we're very happy that, I, as an individual, have invested in, WoW was invested in, and of course, many of the community have invested in. It is no longer possible, and hasn't been possible for many, many months, to invest into Voice Life. They've closed that off. In fact, they're talking about putting a fund together to actually do buybacks of their equity shares, or what were once called NFTs. This is I've had many people in our community going, I'd love to buy another one. I'd love to buy, or people that came in later either weren't in a position to buy it at the time, or would like to be able to get one now. Of course, like I said, this is closed. But what I would like to do is we're going to create a whitelist. On this whitelist, if you can fill in the details required in the whitelist, if you think you would like to buy another equity unit, or I'm going to call them NFTs, if there is strong enough demand, then I'll approach Mikkel, who is, the lead in Voice Life, and, a close personal friend, and, someone that I believe is doing wonderful, wonderful things with this project. I believe it's going to be it's going to be a household name in the future. And so if you think this is something you'd like to potentially invest in, then fill in the whitelist. If we do somehow, and I'm certainly not promising this, but if we do somehow manage to get an additional allocation, and I think, the odds are certainly against it, then, but if we were to, anyone who fills in the whitelist it'll be first come, first serve based on the whitelist. So if you are interested, fill in the whitelist. You're going to need your name, email, your wallet that an NFT will go to, your existing level of NFT you have with WoW, whether you've bought one before or not, and how many you would like to buy now, whether one or whatever. So I'd strongly suggest, if it's of interest to you, then at least fill that in. And if we are extremely lucky to get the opportunity, then we will let you know, and we'll come back and do a call on Voice Life around that. So that's the general gist. I mean, how does the market affect what we look at? Again, I suppose, fortunate about what WoW does and how we do it is where we are investing in, first of all, early stage crypto projects. So they don't need to come out into the market until they think, first of all, that they have everything appropriate and ready and right and developed, but also they can go into a market when they believe it's, in a bullish direction. No one's certain sure of where that is right now, but whether the market goes up or down until those projects come out, it doesn't affect them. As long as they have funding, they're good to go. As for some of the low cap crypto projects that we've invested in, very happy with the investments we've made in those. Yes, they're at a lower value right now. Potentially, it could be an idea to consider the idea of dollar cost averaging in. If you believe that this is the range and Bitcoin is going to go up from here, then that would make sense. If, however, you think there's a big pullback to come, well, then you might want to hold off, or maybe again dollar cost average in, pull in some now and hold some for later, on the chance that it does come lower. So that's the sort of quick wrap on, or maybe not so quick wrap on, our thoughts of the overall crypto space at the moment. Certainly, if you have questions, please put questions into the private group, and I'll address them on our weekly updates. I would also suggest that it would make sense for people to join our YouTube channel. It's just Wealth of Wisdom, and we'll be uploading videos there on an ongoing basis, including the likes of this. But also, we have a TikTok account as well. That's very much worth following, because I tend to add, short 1 minute, 2 minute clips on, I won't say a daily basis, but now and again on what's happening in the crypto space in general. So an easy, digestible little bit of information on a regular basis. With that, thanks for taking time to listen. Again, if you have any questions or ideas that you'd like me to cover on these weekly updates, just let me know and we will do so. Thank you very much.